Hi, and you're very welcome to episode 13 of the League of Ireland show here on finalwhistle.ie. I'm joined once again by Alan Keane, who's been doing little jigs around the house for the last 12 or 14 hours or so as we record this. Sligo Rovers top of the league, Alan. It's rare in recent seasons, not so much in your time, but it's rare. There must be fairly good excitement around the town.
Yeah, there definitely is, and it's a good buzz. You're after beating the league champions up in their own home patch. You go back to the game earlier in the season when they kind of got done with a late goal. So I think Liam Buckley will keep his troops grounded. But the only worry you'd have is you're coming into the mid-season break at the wrong time for Sligo Rovers, possibly a good time for Shams with all the injuries and a couple of other teams. But yeah, great buzz. Even there this morning now, popping into town, loads of people on a high after last night on top of the table. But you know, the lads won't get carried away with themselves, and it's good to see. And you know what? Overall, fully deserved, because they have the best defensive record in the league and they haven't been overrun in any game whatsoever.
Yeah, they've been very, very solid defensively. To be fair, all season they've looked very hard to beat. Maybe not the most creative going forward, but they still find the back of the net with regularly enough to hit the back of the net. They're winning games. They're picking up points left, right, centre. Let's fly quickly through Friday night's games and just bring people up to speed with them. It feels like a lifetime ago at the moment, but of course a win for Derry down in Waterford at 1-0 victors down there, while Pats edged out Bohemians 2-1 also on Friday in the early kickoffs. In the later kickoffs on Friday night in the Premier Division, Dundalk winners, surprise winners to be fair, but well worth their win on the night, 2-1. They ended Shamrock Rovers' 33-game unbeaten run. They're now on a 2-game streak that they won't want. Stephen Bradley will be quick to turn that around next weekend. Sligo Rovers, Longford Town, 2-0 victory for the Bit of Red, which set them up for a top-of-the-table clash last night as we record this, Monday night, which of course we now know they went on to beat Sligo Rovers 1-0. And Finn Harps beaten by Drogheda, who seem to be on their own little bit of a roll. We might just drop down to the first division and take a look at the results from Friday night as well and just get them all out of the way. Athlone Town, 2-1 winners over Cove Ramblers, while Cork City and Galway United played a 1-1 draw on John Caulfield's return back to to Turner's Cross with Galway United. Shells and UCD 3-1 there for Shells, too strong for the students. They go top of the league comfortably at the end of the play on Friday evening. Wexford and Bray, 1-0 there for Bray. A good win, solid victory for them. At Wexford, their woes continue despite the addition of Ian Ryan to the managerial position. Cabinteely and Treaty United. Cabinteely, a big win there. Somewhat maybe unexpected, but it leaves the league table with Shells out on top, UCD in second, level with Athlone, Cabinteely a point behind, Bray back on 14, Galway United and Treaty on 13, Cork 9, Cove 5 and Wexford still with no points on the table. That's a little bit disappointing, Alan.
Yeah, it is, but they've obviously got Ian Ryan now down, and I think is Larkin Fitzgerald gone in with him. So
yeah, he's gone in as a number 2. Yeah, as a player,
so it'll be interesting for them. They need a bounce back. But in fairness, they've seemed to struggle to get players down there. That's the only issue, and it's I suppose geographically they're probably situated in, you know, you're talking, you have Shells, you have Bray, you have, you know, Cabinteely, UCD. There's a lot of teams up around there that players are just happy enough sitting in Dublin and the surrounds instead of going all the way down to Wexford.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, Dundalk had a great night Friday night. Mood was really, really high after beating Shamrock Rovers. That's been turned on its head 72 hours later with a fairly heavy defeat to Bohemians, 5-1. Their former striker, Georgie Kelly, getting a hat-trick. That's probably going to be even worse than the scoreline, is the fact that they let him go at the end of last season.
Yeah, of course it is, and I suppose they did let him go because they had Pat Hoban and David McMillan. So it was a difficult one to, I suppose, to hold on to. But I fancy them to beat Shamrock Rovers on Friday night. It's funny, like I just said, if they beat them, they could turn the corner. But my God, talk about a drubbing yesterday. That won't do them any good, and it's awful hard to. They're so unpredictable. Like they go on they have a win against Shamrock Rovers to get beaten 5-1. It's not good enough. You can't accept. It's unacceptable, and the players have to take a lot of responsibility with that. And I suppose coming into the mid-season break, the players will be dying for it, even though they'll probably be in over the mid-season break. But I feel that we need to see the best of the players, that the quality that they have there. But you won't get out of that until they sort out the mess that they have off the field, whether sort out the manager and everything. And I feel like a couple of players might leave this summer.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a mass exodus out of Dundalk, whether that's in the boardroom, on the dugout, on the pitch. I'm not sure anyone really knows what's going on, and that goes from the boardroom right down. And I actually feel sorry for Jim Midgelton, because I think he came in there with great plans and maybe promises made to him. And I suppose people will be looking from the outside in, listening to us talking about it and kind of saying, well, it was kind of obvious that was going to be the situation, that there was a power struggle, that there was a little bit of confusion maybe in terms of the basics of the game at the top of the club. And fans had a big protest the weekend. Depending on what reports you talked to, it was a good turnout. Some say it was a bad turnout. The number is somewhere around the 200 mark by all accounts. There seems to be a want for Peak Six to maybe sort out their own situation and maybe sort out the club chairman and his impact and his influence. But let's be honest, Peak Six, Dundalk's such a small part of their portfolio. It's a pet project now for Matt Hulsiser's dad, Bill. I don't know about you, but if I tried to get my dad to step down from a role of something I was involved in, I'd find it very difficult. And I can only imagine, given the personalities involved, that Bill doesn't need to go anywhere. He doesn't have to go anywhere from a financial point of view. He makes the decisions, or his son makes the decisions. So I think that's just something that Dundalk are going to have to be, unfortunately, maybe stuck with for the next little while.
I think so, and maybe that's the reason why they haven't appointed a manager since, because maybe they have spoke to a lot of that we don't know about, and a couple of managers might have turned them down because they maybe have their eyes have been opened up to the mess that there is. And we spoke to Jim on the first show here. We asked him would he be in the dugout for the year, and he says no. That was he had good plans, and unfortunately he's been thrown in there, and he's double jobbing now, and it's difficult. And I suppose he'll get the brunt of it. But ultimately, as he said, the mess started long before Jim came in and long before this season. You go back to Vinnie Perth, you go back to the previous. We spoke to John Gill on it. It's a continuation. And to be fair, the way things are going, they could find themselves in a relegation battle.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, it didn't change with the arrival of Peak Six. It just seems to have changed with the change of chairman from Mike Tracy, who seemed to be a relatively safe pair of hands, to Bill. And I suppose people can judge their own conclusions from that. We'll be chatting to Gary Rogers very shortly. That may or may not come up in the conversation. And we might also be talking about the goalkeeping situation at Dundalk, because I think it's clear that maybe the quality just isn't there at the moment, and maybe the recruits that they've brought in, or one recruit in particular, just might not be at the pace of the game in the country just yet. We might get Gary's opinion on that later on as well. We better talk about the clash of the Rovers. A couple of interesting things. I know you texted me last night a photograph of the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And I know Longford were guilty before of not naming Shamrock Rovers B when they came to play them in last season. They had development team on all their tweets and the match program, and they just didn't mention Shamrock Rovers at all. It seems to have been returned the favour up the N4 a little bit further. It was the scoreboard that you sent me read Rovers 0, blank 1. It's a little bit disrespectful.
Yeah, I just think we can all have the crack and have the banter between the fans and stuff like that, but you got to show respect to the opposition and the teams. You put whatever they want to put down Sligo if they want. But I liked whoever was looking after Sligo Rovers Twitter account. They just said we will be what did they say at all? They said something, we will be heard, or we have a voice, or we have a name. So it's just disrespectful. But look, it doesn't really surprise me, because back in 2012 when we won the league, they wouldn't give us a guard of honour going out at the end of the season, and it caused a bit of, I suppose, tensions took off since then, because I think it was a bit disrespectful, because I know Sligo Rovers, no doubt about it, would give them a guard of honour coming out if it was roles reversed. But last night I just thought that was a bit unprofessional. All right, there's no need. Fans, players can have the banter, have the crack, but clubs, stay professional.
Yeah, and I've been on the what I wouldn't say the receiving end. I've been on the providing end of that guard of honor for various clubs I've been involved in over the years. It's not pleasant when you have to stand there and clap on your competitors after they've beaten you through the season. You do it through gritted teeth every single time, but you do it.
It's respect. It's respect for your fellow players. It's not really, you can do it, but you've got to respect the fellow players, because at the end of the day, who knows, you could be one of them walking out and you'd want that. And, it's just, at the end of the day, you have to show respect, albeit when you cross that white line, that's, you're playing for the crest, and that's it. But you still, we're all human beings. We're all, all players. Everyone wants to win, but we all can't win, So, look, it's interesting, but look, the result went the right way, and that was the main thing.
Absolutely. Well, listen, let's quickly take a look at the other 2 or 3 fixtures from last night. Waterford, Finn Harps, they pulled it out of the bag. We're going to talk to Ollie Horgan later in the show as well. 2 late goals, a cracker from Adam Foley.
Oh, Finn Harps, we were looking at the game, and Waterford thought they got the new bounce with the new manager. And then I was trying to flick through games. And to be fair, Harps were on the ascendancy, and I thought, I said, if they don't come out of here with a win, they'll be kicking themselves. But they grounded out the win. They played really well, and Adam Foley again with a strike. They're flying. They're on the right side of the table, if you know what I mean. And actually, I'm very surprised, and I suppose I'll chat to Ollie on it later, that they're actually playing football now, because they're always associated with long, get it up to the big man up top, play off him. They're actually playing football now, and they're actually playing a decent brand of football, and they're grinding out results. And they needed that win, I think. They needed that lift again, and it was a good grind out result. And delighted for Ollie.
Pats, of course, left it quite late to rescue a point in the Brandywell. It's unfortunate for Rory Higgins, nearly his first win as a manager at home. It's going to come, though, because Derry have improved remarkably over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they have, and they play some good football. But I kind of think that Rory needs to get his defence sorted, get a solid base, and play from there. They want to play football, but they're leaking goals too easy at the back. And I think if they get solid and then start playing, because we all know they can play football, they have a good squad up there. But he must be kicking himself, conceding so late again, and so close to that win. But it's work in progress, and they're it's good to see them kind of, because everyone needs Derry in the league.
Yeah, the final game we haven't touched on yet. Drogheda United, good win at the weekend, but also they follow that up with a fantastic win at Headingham Park last night against Longford Town. Disappointing end, I suppose. 4-1 Longford. It's going to be a long season for Longford.
Yeah, Longford's this year, they just need to be in that playoff zone, I think, or close to the team above them. But you got to look, you have Derry and Dundalk ahead of you, and you expect them now to go on a bit of a run. So the further away you keep, you keep losing games, and the further away you go, you just have to pray that you're not in the bottom and automatic relegation. It's disappointing, but Drogheda absolutely flying it. I think it's the ground for free kicks, isn't it? Worldies, because Ronan Murray again last night, unbelievable. Anton Day Massey can do, Ronan Murray can do. So quality. And look, we've spoke about Drogheda. We spoke about the way Tim has, and we spoke to Conor Hoey and said, I said that Drogheda would be all right this year. They're more than all right. They're absolutely flying it, and no team will want to play them right now.
Yeah, of course, that league table. 4-1 the final score there, just for the record. The league table, Sligo, as you mentioned, on top, 1 point clear of Shamrock Rovers, back on 27 points, and then Pats on 25. There's a bit of a gap opening up to Drogheda on 22. 4 more points back to Finn Harps on 18. Bows 1 point behind after their fine victory against Dundalk, 17 points from their 13 games. Dundalk and Derry, as you mentioned, 7th and 8th in the table. I expect both to come good later on in the year, 14 points. And then it's a massive gap back to Longford. 7 points to Longford, who sit on 7 points, with Waterford on 6. And I think a lot of people in the first couple of weeks of the season were thinking it could be between Longford and Waterford to go down. It's kind of playing out that way, and really just a matter of who can stay ahead of the other and avoid the automatic relegation at the moment. But never know, things can change. If Dundalk can't get it together, or Derry fall back into a losing way, they could be drawn back into that as well.
Yeah, and that's it. As we said there, the hope for Longford is that you can drag as many teams back into as close as possible. 7 points is a massive gap down there. You mightn't think it, but it is 2 wins, 3 wins, and hoping that the other teams above you. So you'd expect the quality of Derry and the experience of Dundalk would just pull away. You're looking at Finn Harps or flying it and others. I'm sure at the start of the year, the likes of Waterford and Longford would have been hoping the likes of Finn Harps and the likes of Drogheda that would be there battling around with them. But unfortunately, they've kicked on this year and they're doing wonders.
Yeah, we'll talk about the fixtures for next weekend later in the programme. Of course, the last weekend before the mid-season break, Longford will be hosting Shamrock Rovers, though, who will be looking to avoid a triple defeat on the bounce. So I'd be worried for the reaction they might get on Friday night or Saturday night, probably in Bishopsgate. It's going to be a long couple of weeks for Longford as they kind of get through the next few weeks of the season. Maybe let's jump over and have that chat with Gary Rogers, who joins us now. Now, of course, somebody who knows all about the team at the top of the league at the moment, Sligo Rovers, but also the team that we spoke about earlier, struggling, particularly in the goalkeeping department, is the former goalkeeper for both those sides, Gary Rogers. There's a couple of other teams thrown in there as well. I know our paths crossed during Dublin City days, Gary, but you've been around the block, but you're probably best known for those 2 clubs in recent years. Welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, lads.
Now, unfortunately, you had to put up with Keane in a couple of those dressing rooms as well. We're going to wait for the dirt on Keane later until he can't get you back, really. But I suppose let's start maybe with how retirement's going for you.
Yeah, no, it's going good. I'm obviously enjoying a new role. It's I'm just thankful that I stepped out of football and there was kind of opportunities there for me to step into. So that's a major plus, and the fact that it's involved in football still, it's great. So I think the timing for me was right. I just felt that it was a nice way to sign off with a cup final win in the bag and my last game in the Aviva against Arsenal in the Europa League. I couldn't have envisaged a better way of calling it a day, you know.
Yeah, Gaz, like speaking on retirement, I suppose you get it a lot now. People, they say to you when you're tired, do you miss it? Do you do this? Do you do that? But on your terms, you went out on your terms rather than seeing a season out, say, on the bench looking on. How massive or how big was that? Like, do you miss it now? As in terms of would the COVID situation have helped you? Because I found when I retired, going to the games with the crowds there, I found it a little tough at the start. But say for you now, how have you experienced going to the games and then there's no crowds? You say, look at that, timing was right.
Yeah, I think, look, obviously we're disappointed with no crowds. I would love to have crowds for the last few games, and I think, you know, it will be different atmosphere once you get them back in there, and we're all looking forward to them days because it's badly missed, and football is only half the game without them. You know, it just goes to show. You see the FA Cup in the UK and crowds coming back in, but look, I'm really happy with, you know, the way that I've gone out, and the fact that, like you say, I've gone on my own terms rather than hanging on a little bit too long, and people may say you were finished anyway, but like it's nice to be able to kind of call it when you want to go and relatively at the top. I know we didn't win the league last year, but you know, we did win a cup, and so I was kind of happy with that. I didn't want to be hanging on too long, and COVID, like did have aspirations of trying to get Alpha Nuken's appearance record, and you know, COVID really killed that for me because like I needed to play all of last season and then all of this season, and I would have topped him. So COVID didn't help, and that kind of did make me mind up because I would have had to play for another 2 or 3 years, and you just don't know whether you're able to do that. And look, I feel good. I'm happy that I got out of the game, I suppose, relatively injury free. Obviously, you know yourself, you pick up a few knocks along the way, but we're a bit old school. We would have played with them, and a bit of ignorance there, but gladly nothing too bad that, you know, that they're paying the price for it now.
Of course, we mentioned off air about number of games played. You did have a spell at Dublin City, half a season or so before they went out of business that summer. Those 16 or 17 games, whatever it was, cancelled, gone from the record. Would that have been a factor maybe if you had only maybe those 15 or 16 games less to have to play?
Yeah, well, I think it would have meant that this season, if I played all of this season with them games on top of it, I would have been, providing you play every game, I would have been, in around the house for getting that. But the fact that I wasn't going to be And then I spoke to Filippo as well when I was at Dundalk throughout the season, because I was sussing them out in terms of what the thinking was for next year, and I knew they were bringing in Alessio, and they were bringing in a young American keeper as well, and they wanted me to be in the fold, and I didn't fancy that. Like, I played all my career, and I still felt that I wouldn't be happy sitting on the bench and playing second fiddle. It's just not in me nature, and I'd be fuming. I'd be fuming right now if I was there at the minute with the results. But I just didn't see myself being a number 2 goalkeeper. Like, it mightn't have played out that way, but I know the way Filippo was doing things, he was rotating keepers a lot, and we had words about that, and I didn't enjoy that either. Like, I felt he was giving opportunities to the other keepers when I'm doing my best to keep them out, and that's the way as a goalkeeper, as number 1, you want to kind of limit the opportunities of your opposition in terms of getting game time. Whereas I felt that Filippo would give games for no reason, basically, to the other goalkeeper, and that just puts pressure on you to perform as well.
And Gaz, like you touched on it there, I found that in the Europa League, it felt like he was over a schoolboy team. He was chopping and changing. I seen there was, the different keepers and stuff like that. So I'll go back to the whole thing on Dundalk. You've been there. Is it as much of a mess as what we perceive to see now, looking from the outside?
Yeah, it looks that way, and it certainly was a mess. There was stuff going on and off the field that just doesn't. They're not creating the right environment to succeed. And Keane, the dressing room in Dundalk, and the environment that Stephen Kenny created there, and the atmosphere that there was amongst the team. That's what the success was driven on, that, and obviously Graham Bourne and the fitness of the players. Like, there was teams beaten in the dressing room before we went out onto the pitch. Like, you just look over at the opposition and you just know you're going to beat them, not in an arrogant way, but you just knew that our lads were primed and ready to go. And like, we'd look at teams that we'd know we're going to steamroll them. Whereas that now, you couldn't buy a win, and the kind of atmosphere has completely changed, and the environment and the culture that was associated with Dundalk is gone, and it's very hard to get that back, and that is the major struggle now for the club. And you look at Jim Magilton, has a big job in his hands. He seems to be struggling to get a manager right now, and that's fundamentally the first thing that they do need, is a manager in there to steer the ship. And it's been far too long waiting in the wings trying to get a manager in. 5 weeks is just not acceptable.
Well, we spoke about that, me and Breifne, just earlier. Do you think that they have been speaking to managers, but managers that come in and basically they're maybe being told that they're not really going to be in charge, and they've just gone, look, I'm not getting involved in that?
Well, it's hard to know what to think, because the communication, has been so poor in terms of, like, the fans don't know what they're doing. Certainly the media don't really know what the club are doing, and the players won't know either, because you only need to go back to what Shane Keegan said on one of the I think it was Off the Ball podcast, whereas he was told 10 minutes before a press conference that he was being named the manager. So that'll tell you what the communication is like between the club and the board and the players. Like, there was often cases last year where you'd see information on mainstream media before the players would know about it. Like, so that communication element and that problem hasn't been rectified.
Yeah,
it's a tough look in from the outside when you see kind of how successful the club has been over the last 8 or 10 years, and to see the kind of the demise so quickly in such a short space of time. It's tough to see how they pull themselves back from this, because there's rumours now about the likes of Chris Shields moving north during the summer. Some names would moves away, and really it's ripping the heart out of that team that would probably take a few years to rebuild if and when they get the right person in the dugout.
Yeah, you just need to look at say the scouting and the recruitment that has gone on. You look at Georgie Kelly scoring a hat-trick last night. He was a Dundalk player last year, was let go. You look at Will Patching on loan to Derry. He's leading the way in terms of assists in the whole league. So, like, Will has been the most creative player. Probably goes under the radar a bit because he's at Derry, but in terms of assists and goals, he's probably the most creative player in the league. And then you look at John Mountney gone to St. Pat's, Robbie Benson, they lost the previous year. You've Dane Massey, who scored 3 or 4 goals for Drogheda. His leadership and quality in the dressing room is missed as well. And like, we're only touching the iceberg. Look at Sean Gannon, probably the best right back. Keane will agree with me. one of the best right backs that has been in the league for a number of years, and he went to their closest rivals, and not to mention Sean Hoare. Like, Dundalk have lost their pace out of the back four or back five or whatever way you want to play it. Like Sean Gannon and Sean Hoare were the pace in that defence, and you look at the amount of goals that they've leaked now off the back of losing. Obviously, you know, they lost all three goalkeepers and a goalkeeping coach, so that will tell you a little bit about the recruitment scenario that's going on.
Yeah, it's funny. Sunday afternoon, I wasn't talking to him, but I was standing beside Steve Williams. He's with Louth now. They were down playing Leitrim in a National League match at the weekend. And he was roaring. It was like he was still playing for Shells, to be honest. It was like I was on the terrace at Tallaght Park listening to him instructing the defenders. You're with
I'm glad you were listening to him and not me. I had enough of him in my ear for 6 or 7 years.
But you're with Monaghan GA as well at the moment. Now, they're amateur sports, although I'm sure there's expenses involved. But why? What's the attraction now to not getting back involved with the likes of Dundalk, and for people like yourselves to be leaving from behind the scenes as well? It's a huge drain on expertise and game awareness from the sport, never mind the club.
Yeah, well, I know that why Steve is not there is because you need a UEFA A license to be a goalkeeping coach in a Premier Division club, and Willow has his B license, and the club would have been using my A license while I was playing to satisfy licensing criteria there. Obviously, I have different reasons for not being around. I just didn't think, obviously, I have a new job, and there was a couple of different things on the agenda. I wasn't, like, they spoke to me about coming back into the club, but there was no offer kind of made. You know, like, you know, oh, will you come back in and do this, that, or the other? But there was no actual, say, firm offer. This is what we want you to do, and this is the contract that you'll be getting, or whatever it is. Because I think with any job offer, you would get a contract, or you would get an offer of a wage. So there was nothing put to me, so there was nothing to kind of knock back. Having said that, I wasn't really that keen to go in there anyway. Like, I would have seen the environment there last year, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to kind of get away from the club, and to kind of move on and have a clean start and explore different opportunities, you know.
So, guys, getting away from Dundalk, you're at the Clash of the Rovers last night. How did you see it yourself? You know, the game, you've seen it live, so have you? What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Sligo Rovers this year. You know what you're going to get from them. They've got a really good goalkeeper. They've got an excellent back four. You know, you look at John Mahon and Gary Buckley, two excellent centre halves. Even like McCourt, and whether it's Lewis or Horgan, really excellent kind of that core unit. Greg Bulger, for me, has been the signing of the season. I know Gibson has lit it up at times, but I think Greg gives Sligo Rovers that winning mentality and that bit of steel that they may have been lacking. I just think he's been terrific, and he kind of dictates everything around the club, I'd imagine. I don't know, I'm not in the dressing room, but from, like, I kind of know Greg a little bit, and I would have seen him around the place and played against him, and I just know what he gives you and what he's given that club. So and they're also very exciting in terms of, you know, their front four, whether it be Johnny Kenny or Romeo, and Gibson has been brilliant, and Figueira. They all give you something a little bit different, but they have pace and they're dynamic up front. So I really enjoyed watching them this season. Like, I think that defensive solidity that they have is the kind of the base of the success. But when they get the ball, they know how to hurt teams. And you've also got to give credit to Liam Buckley and John Russell, and I suppose the strength and conditioning at Sligo, because it's not the biggest squad, and they've managed to keep everybody relatively fit, because I don't think they could take 3 or 4 injuries to key players and still produce the results that they are. So, you know, there's massive credit needs to go to the whole management team and how they're doing their business down there and getting everyone, or more or less everybody, fit week to week. And look, like I said, I really enjoyed Sligo, and look, they're doing fantastic.
Yeah, that's it's funny that you said that about the fitness and keeping them. I spoke to Rustler at the start of the year, and he said, look, the squad is small, but sometimes a small squad is great because you know, you have your continuity every week. But Tom French, yeah, I think he's with Sports Academy. He's in there with them. He has someone working under him as well, and they're completely priming them. They said all the way through not to peak too soon, and I don't think they are, and they haven't been overrunning games. But going back in terms of Shamrock Rovers, obviously I tweeted last night, you find that they're very predictable in the last, I suppose, since this season, that they don't have that creativity of Jack Byrne, Aaron McAniff, it seems like teams find it easy to play against them.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when you're the champions, you know how teams are going to set up every week. They're going to say, "Come and beat me," and that's always the challenge. The easiest thing for any team to do is sit there and be defensive and say, "Right, we're going to try and get something out of the game." That's always the easy thing. Like, you see managers come into a new team and they'll set up not to get beat and to try and build on something. Unlocking defenses is the hard thing. That's why Jack Bourne was so good. That's why Aaron McAniff. These guys are missed, because you think about Jack, he links everything together and he picks holes in the defence and he moves people around. Whereas I felt watching Shamrock Rovers, I suppose particularly against Dundalk, that Danny Mandrew, he dropped in too deep in between centre backs, and it was kind of like players all the way around the periphery of the pitch, but there was nobody in the middle where you could break the lines and link it in, just to draw Dundalk out of position a little bit. So, like, that is the hard thing, but I do think they've done enough so far. Like, they've got late wins and they've got goals, but I don't think they're as good as they were last year. I think the energy that Aaron McAniff brings to the team, and that skill and guile that Jack Bourne brings to the team, they're very hard to replace. And now I know Danny Mandrew has done really well, and Graham is good, and Dylan Watts and all these players. But like, it's kind of a new midfield, if you like. But it's a working process, and you look at Richie Towell coming into the squad as well. I do think they'll be hard bet for the league, regardless. I know Sligo Rovers at the top of the table, and delighted to see them there. But to stay there and maintain it for the season is going to be a huge ask, and it will come down to what signings they will make in July in order to strengthen. Because you do need to strengthen and freshen things up. But they've given themselves a fantastic base for the season.
Gary, your new job is obviously a scouting role with a Portuguese company. I know you've spoken about it a good bit on other forums over the last couple of months, but I suppose now that you're half a season in, we're approaching the mid-season break, there's plenty of young names that have burst onto the scene this year, the likes of Johnny Kenny, Ryan O'Kane. They're all names we've heard mentioned up and down the league. Who's impressed you, maybe mightn't have made it yet into that kind of group of players, or even within that group of youngsters that have kind of burst through this season?
Yeah, look, the one thing about our league, I think, the league is probably not as strong as it was maybe a number of years back, where you would have 4 or 5 teams contest. And remember, like, there would have been good Pats, Derry, Cork teams, and you would have the usual Shamrock Rovers and Bows and stuff like that knocking around. So I don't think it's as strong where it is. It has been a 2-horse race for the last number of years, whether it be Cork and Dundalk. So there is opportunities for young players to come into teams, and you look at the likes of Drogheda doing really well, and they've had some really good young players come through. Young centre midfielder Killian Phillips has done really well for them. Obviously, James Brown has really taken the league by storm. I know he's not an unknown in terms of for Tim Clancy, because he obviously had him over the last couple of years. But he's been brilliant at right back for Drogheda. And you look at Ronan Boyce at Derry City, another good young player. And Derry have a habit of bringing through really good talent. You look at, going back to years, we have Patrick McElhenney and Mickey Duffy and these guys, and they always go on to a good level. And there's a number of players who do that at Derry. So look, the league presents a really good platform for young players now, especially with the situation in terms of COVID and no fans coming in. So gate receipts are down. So clubs don't have the same income that they would generally have. So they have to look at, bringing players through from their academy, and that will benefit the young players, I think, going forward, and it will help the league to grow and the talent to grow. And so it's a really interesting time, I suppose, for my new job and my new role to look at that talent and identify young players coming through into the league.
Gary, is there any spot for me in that role? I'm still only a young fella, I could still go across the water. Just tell them I'm only 20. I might get away with it.
Just get yourself a Joey Ado out there. We never knew what age Joey was either.
Nobody believes you're 20 when they look at that hair, Alan. I'm sorry, you just won't cut it. We're going to have to chat with Ollie Horgan. He might have a contract for you. He likes kind of the older lads from Sligo. He had Raf up there for a couple of seasons. We might find you a job up there in a couple of minutes. But Gary, listen, I know you're under pressure to get away for training tonight with Monaghan, so the best of luck to you with all of that and the new job, and continue to enjoy the retirement. It suits you. You look very relaxed.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
He's lost his hair now. I've told him for years.
Hair's all gone. There's 3 girls. I've no hair. They're pulling me hair out.
He's finally took the plunge and cut it. I was giving out to him for years. Patrick Keane, we used to call him.
Should have done it earlier. Regretting there.
Larry, thanks a million for joining us.
All the best, lads.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Now, one person who'd be delighted with the results over the Monday evening fixtures was, of course, the come-from-behind hero down in Waterford, Finn Harps, of course, 2-1 winners down there. And Ollie Horgan, their manager, joins us now. Ollie, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Alan.
Ollie, you must be delighted, first of all, last night. Puts you kind of top half of the table. It's a nice place to be looking towards the mid-season break next week.
Yeah, look, it was a great result for us, especially away from home, having gone 1-0 down. But I mean, we needed a result, and we'd huffed and puffed a bit, and we need enough results, Alan, to try by 36 games to stay in this and see where we're at then. But it's really nothing more than that. I mean, we don't get too carried away if we win, and we don't get too despondent should we lose, and that's really the way we've been for years, and that's not going to change,
And Ollie, the contrast in the seasons gone by, say, you would have been kind of, everyone would have told you is, just a big physical side, get it up to the front man and play off him. But I've seen you a good few times this year, and you actually are playing some pretty good football. What would you have said that? Is that the personnel that you've brought in, or what would you put that down to?
I'm more interested to know who the front man was you were talking about there, that we could get it up to. You might fill me in later.
Raf Guitarro, maybe.
Yeah, Raf, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, there isn't a whole lot that has changed. Yeah, we survived in the last year of the season last year by the width of the post. Curtis Byrne hit the bottom of the post to Waterford. That would have put us into the playoff instead of Shelburne, and that was the narrow margins of us staying up. We've more or less the basis of the same side that we had last year that finished well, but we need to try and see, can we improve on last year. And at the moment, we need to finish above two teams, to try and avoid the playoff spot. And I don't know how many games in, is it 13? We've had a long way to go, and a lot can change in that time,
It must be nice, though, Ollie, to be looking at from the point of view of where you are in the table, in mid-table, down with a healthy double-figure digit gap to that playoff position at this stage of the season.
Yeah. Obviously, it's better looking down than looking up than we normally are. But I think everyone in the club is very realistic. We don't know anything better than fighting relegation, be it avoiding it in the last day or be it status. I don't remember a game in my time where there was never a game that we didn't have to win, if you like. We never had the luxury of a game at the end of the season that didn't matter. They always mattered, and we were right in it till the very end. And that's possibly the way it'll go this year after the 36 games.
Yeah, and Ollie, looking at you this year, as I said, you've assembled a good squad. I suppose a lot of experienced lads, and I'm really impressed with in the middle of the park is Coyle and Adam Foley's hit the ground running for you. How important is it for your strikers to, I suppose, set the tone at the start of the year and get the goals that he's been getting?
Yeah, they've all done well in that area, but we probably haven't scored enough. I don't know how many goals we scored in 13 games, but it certainly would be well down the order of strikers within the Premier Division. However, it's probably at the other end is where we've improved a bit. We took a serious hammering by Bowes for nothing up in Dalymount. It could have been way more. They absolutely destroyed us. And Pats gave us a hiding at home, albeit it only finished 2-0. Other than that, we were probably consistent and right in all the other games. However, we probably need to score more goals. Adam included, he'd be the first person will tell you that. And we need to get a few more. Like you're talking about, get it up to the big man, be it Raf or whatever you like, or score from set pieces. We haven't scored from a set piece basically, and we need to do more of that to have any hope in trying to stay away from that bottom relegation battle. And we have a lot of improving to do, lads, if that's to happen over 36 games. The likes of Drogheda, who bet us and deservedly bet us for the last minute goal, albeit last weekend, they've been right in every single game of their 13, not just 10 or 11 of them as we have been. And that's why they are where they are, and that's why they're in the top 4 positions of it. And we need to get better at that end of the pitch and share around the goal scoring side of it, should that be the case. Look, as I said to you, lads, I don't really do podcasts, and I'm probably very boring for your listeners out there. It's not my forte, but it's early days. We're 13 games into 36. You're talking about just over a third of the season. We need to try and get more points on the board. I mean, before we played Waterford yesterday, it was all doom and gloom with the media that we'd only won 1 in 8 or something like that, and what's gone wrong. There wasn't a whole lot that went wrong, and thank God we got a result last night. But we play Sligo, who Alan better than anyone, who are top of the table for a reason. We play them on Friday, and unless we're right, we'll get a run around like we did in Dalymount.
Yeah, you mentioned Sligo, Ollie, and of course there's 2 former Sligo players. Well, there's a couple of Sligo players. Luke McNicholas is on the bench, but the 2 that I want to chat to you about briefly is in midfield, Will Seymour has been a revelation for you this year, considering it didn't really work out for him in the Showgrounds last year. And you've kept the secret of the season with Johnny Dunleavy's return to first team football. Everyone thought he had retired, but he's been picking up really solid performances for you this season as well since he came into the squad.
Yeah, I mean, like, just make it quite clear, Alan, it wasn't a secret. It wasn't that we told the from not having played in the guts of 18 months. He's going week by week. He played last night on a Monday night. Johnny won't be fit for Friday, unfortunately, and we've got to manage him. And it wasn't that it was a secret. It was that Johnny doesn't need attention. We don't need attention on the basis that, God forbid, if he breaks down, it would be an awful blow to him and to us. So we just got on with our business, as did he, and we're delighted to have got what we got off him, but unfortunately we have to manage him. And while the break isn't really ideal for anyone at this early in the season, bar Johnny Dunleavy, it probably is good for him.
We'll see more as well. What addition has he been to your team, Ollie?
We'll look. We both myself and Paul Hegarty would have watched Sligo on during the lockdown, during the virus, be it on a Friday, be it on a midweek game, be it on a Saturday. Sligo picked or played the previous team that we would play the following weekend, if I've explained that in good enough English. And invariably, we would have watched Sligo the week before, watching the opposition they would have played, because they were next up for us the following weekend. So we saw a lot of Will Seymour. He's a smashing lad and a smashing player, and long may that continue. But I mean, Sligo went, with the likes of Greg Bulger, that is a step ahead again, and we were delighted that Will came to us, but it's not like that Sligo have weakened. They've probably improved with the likes of Greg in the middle of their field, to be fair to them.
And Ollie, you touched on players. Do you find it difficult being up there to get players in, because you are part-time, and obviously players coming out of Dublin would prefer to sit there? Because I noticed at my time at Sligo, it is difficult to get players come across, but you've actually got a decent balance there now. Do you find it difficult in the off-season to recruit players?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a car that comes from Dublin. Effectively, you have a car that comes from Galway, and that helps. And if you've one in the car, it's as easy to have 3 or 4 in the car, albeit with the virus, they had to travel, if you like, separately. But yeah, it is difficult. I mean, obviously Sligo geographically, but maybe financially might be better off and might be able to attract lads better. But we've gradually tried to improve it year on, year out, and only time will tell whether we have this year. But with a good bunch together, the very together is probably the biggest positive that I'd say for them. There's no egos about them, and they get on with their business. But like, we've had tough days, and thank God last night we had a good day. But we know there's going to be highs and lows in it, although we move on very quickly from both the highs and the lows in it, Alan. And it's a question of whether we can muster up enough points to try and stay in this and to try and better it again, maybe in a year to come.
Of course, you've only 13 games played, Ollie, at this stage of the season. There's 20 odd to go, but what's the ambition this year? You're 5th at the moment. Can you hold on to that position? Can you move further up the table? Or have you've a reputation for being a kind of a glass half empty kind of guy? Are you still looking at that 9th spot and making sure there's daylight between you and that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's no point of pretending anything different. Like, I mean, there's teams below us in the table that will not be below us in the table, and that's no criticism of their own. Come the end of the season, they probably the best team we played in so far are Bohemians. I actually think they're still behind us, and there's no way on earth, no matter how well we play, will Bohemians be behind us at the end of 36 games. And there's other sides, like Dundalk, the likes of Derry, they're not going to be lying down there for too long. And you're then looking at, can we stay above the bottom two and see can we better that? And that's basically nothing has changed with us. And while people want you to have, you're brilliant or you're brutal, we're neither, and we're somewhere in between, and we're just hoping that we're not brutal, although the day in Bohemians was a bad day for us, because Bows were at their level and we weren't anywhere near what we could do. And there was a massive gulf in it that day, and we're just hoping we don't have too many of them days before the 36 games are out. But I've no doubt there will be a couple of them, but if we're keeping them, down to small figures, well then you might be doing too badly,
For me, Ollie, last year, I suppose after we came back after the pandemic, for me, and a lot of others have said it, that you deserve Manager of the Year for the job that you've done. Would you put that down to, and anyone I spoke about you, they'd say your man management is excellent, and not only your man management, but you treat them like proper adults and as a family.
Right, I don't know. Number one, are you on the wine with the Manager of the Year, Alan? Is it, don't know who's open at home? No, is it back up? No, but no, I mean, like, we survive by the width of the post. So if that gives you the Manager of the Year, I'm not quite sure what they do. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to be critical of our own management team or myself or Paul Hegarty. We survived by the width of the post, and as Curtis Byrne will tell you, had that ball gone in, we were in the playoff and not Shelburne. And we struggled big time when we went back in August after the restart. We went 7 or 8 games before we got a break or got a point, and it was really right into October and into the start of November that we got going. But thankfully, which you kind of referred to earlier on, we started this season with a little bit of that momentum, which gave us a little bit of a buffer at the start to put points on the board, because we need them. But look, we go week by week. The 3 weeks in 3 games in 1 week, we have struggled at the end of those 3 games, which is the Sligo game on Friday, and it's a huge concern to us. The 2 heavy defeats we got to Pats and Bows came at the end of a 3-match week, and we are very, very aware of what we're going into playing the top of the table team in Sligo, and they're there for a reason come Friday night.
I suppose finally, before we let you go, Ollie, I know you're rushing off to training, but how important are those Northwest derbies? I know the first win in the Brandywell must have been a huge moment for everybody involved with the club, and really kind of a really nice feather in your cap for this season.
Yeah, I mean, any games we play derbies with Sligo on Friday night coming, or the Derry game away, it's brilliant for us to be talking about them. For years, we weren't in the same league as them, and we'd only get a game against them in a League Cup game or whatever. I think the downside of the derbies is that we play Sligo on Friday night, and in ordinary times without the virus, the place would be jammed. Sligo are top of the table. They would take, as you know, bus loads and car loads up for that game. Our own support would be out, and that's the downside of it, that they're going brilliantly. We're going okay, and it would be great to have the gates open and the place jammed again. And similarly in Derry a couple of weeks ago on a Monday night, that the place would be jammed for that as well, had times be what they were a couple of years ago. But look, please God, we'll have them back, and we'll still be in the division to be talking about Sligo and Derry next year.
Ollie Horgan there, what a kind of character within the game. He gets a lot of credit for his pessimistic view. We got plenty of that there as well, Alan. He doesn't do many podcasts. He thankfully came on and had a chat with us at your request, and it's been interesting to say the least.
Yeah, look at Ollie. We all love Ollie in the league for the job he's done, and the budget that he does have at Finn Harps is phenomenal. And as you said there, he's there rushing to training to get him after coming back from Waterford after a day in school, teaching in school. He's now in the car. It's remarkable. It's unbelievable, and for what he's been doing. But what a character! Absolutely, and he's still underplaying the whole Finn Harps performance. Like they're in and around it. And he's talking about the likes of the teams beneath them being better than them. Well, the league table doesn't show that, So
you kind of got to say, well, hang on a minute, Ollie, maybe you don't not giving yourself enough credit, but I think that's part of the game plan with Ollie.
Well, I'd probably safely say that he's not telling that to his players, if you know what I mean. But in fairness, I suppose you have to think about it this way, that the last couple of years they've been down there, and he doesn't want the players smelling themselves either. So he's like, right, listen, that's our target. Anything after that is a bonus. So if they can go one better than last year, it's a remarkable season. Or if they're not flirting with the playoffs, which I don't think they will. But this league is a crazy league. You can easily get dragged into it. Two or three defeats and 2 or 3 wins for the teams down there can drag you right back in. So he's probably so experienced. He knows exactly what he's at, and he's keeping his players on his toes.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see how that European campaign comes to fruition. I don't know if they have the quality quite to make that, but like you said, I can't see them getting sucked into any kind of relegation battle at all this season. In terms of that, we might start there on Friday night. Obviously, they're hosting Sligo Rovers in Finn Park. There'll be no supporters, as Ollie mentioned. It's a top of the table clash for Finn Harps. They're playing Sligo Rovers, who are top of the table. Can they stay there this weekend?
Any of the Finn Harps games, you seen the game down in the Showgrounds. It was a mistake. Johnny Kinney's goal, one of them, kick start to the game. Didn't look like any sort of, big difference in the teams. But Sligo are on a roll. Finn Harps are coming off a good win against Waterford. But the only issue I'd have is the difference in, I suppose, not quality, but Finn Harps having to travel all the way to Waterford. Sligo Rovers only had to go up the road to Tallaght, and they're a full-time outfit, so it's going to be, I think it doesn't irrelevant where they are in the table. It's going to be who wants it more on Friday night. Northwest Derby, and as we said there, as we talked to Ollie, it's a pity the fans aren't there, because it will be a sellout.
Yeah, Drogheda host Derry, mid-table. Derry kind of struggling of late. Drogheda on a really nice run of form. Can you see Derry picking up the points? It's kind of faltered a little bit under Rory Higgins after that initial bump.
Drogheda are flying it, and I can see another win for Drogheda here. Yes, Derry have kind of steadied the ship a little bit under Rory. They're still searching for the first home win. They've got a win away from home already to the league winners, or the league table toppers at the minute. But I can see a Drogheda win. They're just flying it at the minute, and you can see the confidence going right throughout the side.
Probably the game of the evening for me, when you take the kind of the Northwest rivalries out of it, is Pats and Dundalk. I think that's going to be a real indicator as to maybe how far Pats have improved, and also maybe how far behind them Dundalk are at the moment, which it almost feels a bit surreal given where those two teams have been in recent seasons.
Yeah, it is. And look, at teams that want to finish the mid-season break on a high. Dundalk probably are screaming out for it, just to reset the buttons. Pats, if they win, they probably, they'll want to continue the run that they've been on going. Albeit they drop points in Derry, the valuable 2 points they drop, because they'll want to keep in touch with the top two, and a defeat against Dundalk would, and results go elsewhere. They'll find themselves 5-6 points behind already going into the mid-season break, which would be a lot. But I can see St. Pat's, the quality that they have. I think Dundalk's battering on Monday night against, to Bowes will have an awful effect, and I think Pats will win this game.
Yeah, Bowes, of course, that you mentioned, fine form at the moment. 5 goals against Dundalk on Monday evening. They host Waterford. Can they repeat that? Can they put 4 or 5 past Waterford as well?
I fear for Waterford this weekend. Yeah, I definitely do. Bowes, again, like what we're saying, Keith Long won't want the pre-season break, because they're just starting to find form. I thought the defeat against Pats, they played particularly well all throughout the game, albeit the penalty at the end. I thought a draw probably would have been a fair result, but to go on and do that to Dundalk on Monday night, I fear for Waterford, especially the way Bowes have been playing as of late, and this could be 3-4-5-0.
Yeah, interesting enough from that game, Georgie Kelly scored a hat-trick Monday night, but I don't think, and I think he probably admitted this himself, it hadn't been the best of seasons for him up to that point. Performances just hadn't gone his way. There've been a couple of goals, mostly from the penalty spot, but a hat-trick doubled his total for the season. He's up there, joint top of the goal scorers. It could be the kick he needed as well, because he's had a tough couple of years since he left UCD. Could we see a new Georgie Kelly coming in after the mid-season break?
Most definitely, and I think I've seen an interview what he said there recently, or the last couple of days, is he feels like this is his first season in League of Ireland, and totally agree with him. He was at Dundalk with a great side, couldn't really displace, the likes of Hoban and McMillan, and it was tough for him. We all know the quality that Georgie Kelly has, and when you're a striker, you want to be playing week in, week out, and it breeds confidence. But when you're with a side like Dundalk, when he was only getting in here and there, and he was scoring, but the following week he was out, it's difficult. So you can see that he's now the main man at Bows, and I think he'll kick on from his hat trick. He's a quality player all round, very good. He's good in the air. He's good at holding up, bringing players into it. And look, I think we've yet to see the best of Georgie Kelly.
Final game of the weekend is in Bishopsgate. Longford Town, second last in the table. They face second in the table, Shamrock Rovers. 2 defeats on the bounce. I can't believe I'm saying 2 defeats on the bounce for Shamrock Rovers. Something that they hadn't had in 33 games. Now they've had 2 in a week. They'll be looking to put that right, and it hasn't been great for Longford in recent weeks. It's kind of obvious and kind of basic, but are we looking at a Shamrock Rovers victory here?
Well, on paper, you are. You're looking at a Shamrock Rovers win, and probably win easy, but they haven't been playing great as of late. And as you said, 2 defeats on the bounce after going so long. I was sure with them getting defeated by Dundalk that they were going to have as champions do, a massive bounce back against Sligo Rovers on Monday night, and that didn't happen. They looked flat. They looked very predictable. But again, they've come out and said they've had a lot of injuries, but they're still putting out a serious side. As a Longford at home, we all know they're difficult at home. I'll go with a Shamrock Rovers win, but just.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it goes. So, Sligo Rovers potential it's in their own hands up in Finn Park, and next weekend they could still be the top side in the league going into the mid-season break. You haven't got the now that you're like a local celebrity in the Northwest, Alan. Not that you weren't beforehand, but with your heroics in recent weeks, you haven't got the call from Highland Radio now that Declan Boyle, who's normally with them, has jumped ship to Sligo as a coach. You haven't got that conversation, come up and have a chat with them and do coverage for them over the weekend?
No. I just I think I'll stick to my day job now from now on. I just stay under the radar, because I don't fancy that leaving another commentator high and dry.
It's a bit of a trek from Ballybuffet down to Sligo to put out a fire as well. Alan, thanks as always for being here with us this week. To our guest this week, to Gary Rogers, who spoke quite openly about the situation as he sees it in Dundalk, and I suppose his motivations for not being involved in that this year. Quite eye-opening in places. And to Ollie Horgan, who kind of was the exact opposite, playing down everything to do with being involved with Finn Harps. But we know he absolutely bleeds blue and white up there for everything Finn Harps, and he's one of the major reasons why they're doing so well in recent seasons, and particularly this year. Alan, thanks for joining me, and I suppose we'll chat to you in a fortnight's time, maybe, or we won't actually, because the mid-season break, it'll probably be 3 or 4 weeks before we're chatting to you. But thanks for joining me as always.
Thanks so much, Breifne.